So why did you become a monk?
That's a good question. I became a monk, first of all, because I felt a calling. So we believe that God has set a plan for each one of us, and the plan for me, I believe, was to follow this way of life in which I prayed in a community, I lived in a community, and in this particular abbey, we were also teachers. So I was a teacher for years before I entered the monastery, and I knew I liked working with kids. I knew I liked teaching, and so I believed God's call for me specifically was to come and be a teacher as well as to dedicate my life to prayer and living in a community of other monks.
What did you teach?
I taught religion and social studies to middle schoolers at St. Thomas Aquinas in Dallas.
Oh, cool. Okay. So how has your occupation affected your relationship with God?
That's a really good question. Let me tweak it just a little bit. So rather than occupation, I'm going to call it a vocation, because vocation comes from the word vocare, which in Latin means to call. And so part of the relationship is simply answering the call, and so in saying yes to God, I believe that helps the relationship. So I believe He's called me to this, and I said yes. And in doing so, that strengthened my relationship with Him. But also being surrounded by other men who are prayerful and moral and upstanding helps me to be moral and prayerful and upstanding. It's sort of like when you hang out with good people, you act well. Or if you hang out with not so good people, you might not act so well. And so in this case, I surround myself by good and holy and prayerful men. And in response, they pressure me, although that's not the right word, but it's easy to follow an example of being really good and holy when I'm surrounded by such people. In addition to those things, which I think are very real, I'm also spending more time in prayer. I'm also attending to the sacraments, the Christian Catholic sacraments, more frequently, because it's easy to go to church when it's right downstairs, when it's in your house, and so it's easy to go to Mass. It's easy to go to confession when there's a priest who lives next door to you, and all, just being surrounded by those parts of those external parts of the Catholic faith, I think, make it easy to do so. And as a response, I think I get closer to God by attending to those sorts of things.